Charlie works in his garage, fixing up a small plane. His wife Sarah watches him, then reminds him she's leaving for a business trip to London. She invites him to join her again, but Charlie refuses because of his work. Later, Charlie arrives at CIA headquarters. As he walks through the building, he passes through a series of high-tech security scanners. He invented them himself. Once inside, he makes his way to the decryption and analysis department to begin his day. Suddenly, a new message appears on his monitor. It's from Inquilin, a mysterious informant he's been exchanging intel with for years. This time, the message contains files that could be dangerous. Inquilin warns that the documents might put the CIA itself at risk. Charlie tries to guess their location, suggesting Istanbul, but Inquilin gives no answer. Charlie begins analyzing the files. However, even with his skills, he's unable to break the encryption. After lunch, he returns to his office and gets a call from Sarah. She's arrived in London. Charlie already knows this because he's been secretly tracking her location. They speak briefly before Charlie turns back to the encrypted files. Still unable to unlock them, he brings his computer into a more secure, restricted area with higher processing power. There, the system helps him make progress. Eventually, the files open. Charlie is shocked. They reveal a classified operation, a drone strike disguised as a suicide bombing. Official news reports claimed it killed 150 people, including French and Danish military units. In truth, it was an airstrike authorized by Chief Moore, Charlie's boss. That night, Charlie tries to call Sarah, but she doesn't answer. He leaves a voicemail. The next morning, Charlie arrives at the office and is surprised to find Moore waiting for him. Moore takes him to Director O'Brien's office. She recently took over the position and tells Charlie that there's been a terrorist attack in London. Sarah was one of the victims. Charlie doesn't believe it and wants to call her, but Moore turns on the TV. A news report confirms that 4 terrorists stormed a hotel, took 4 hostages, and killed 2. Then Moore plays security footage from the hotel. It shows chaos and violence, confirming that Sarah was indeed one of the victims. When Charlie returns home, he finds police officers and dozens of reporters outside his house. A friend helps him get past the crowd and into the house without being seen. The following day, Charlie confronts Moore and his supervisor, Caleb. He's suspicious. He doesn't understand how the terrorists slipped through London's extensive surveillance system. He also points out that the attackers managed to drive through traffic without raising any alerts. Moore says the agency is investigating. Caleb suggests Charlie take time off and sends him home. Later, Charlie goes to the airport to receive Sarah's body and belongings. At home, he opens her suitcase and finds a gift she had bought for him. The discovery overwhelms him with grief. Tired of being idle, Charlie returns to work. He accesses the restricted computer system and hacks into the hotel's security feeds and surrounding areas. He carefully reconstructs a timeline of the attack and presents it to Moore and Caleb. He explains that the terrorists stole a vehicle in East End, entered the hotel through a service entrance, and professionally removed all traces of evidence. They had a scheduled meeting with a group called Impact Investments from Indonesia, but something went wrong. A security guard got angry, and one of the terrorists shot him, leaving another guard in critical condition. Hotel security was alerted and called the police. Trying to escape, the terrorists entered a conference room and took hostages. Sarah was captured after she tried to help others flee. Charlie analyzes voice and facial data to identify the attackers. They are Mishka from Moscow, a South African mercenary named Lawrence, Horst, and former intelligence agent Gretchen. He notices that Moore and Caleb are not surprised by this information. They admit they're already working on it and assign Charlie to meet with a therapist. The next day, Charlie hides a chip inside his CIA ID badge. He walks through security, and the scanners fail to detect it. Back in his office, he prints out the classified files and uses a skimmer attached to the printer to create a digital copy. That night, Charlie visits a bar. He sits in front of a jukebox, staring at it in silence. The following morning, Charlie confronts Moore and Caleb again. He shows them the printed documents and lists a series of unauthorized missions led by Moore. These include a bombing on a Syrian hospital and a drone strike on an allied base in Yemen that killed thousands of civilians. Charlie says he will send this information to the press unless they meet his demands. He's triggered a dead man switch. Every 5 hours, he must input a code. If he doesn't, the files will be automatically leaked to major news outlets. In exchange for his silence, Charlie demands full CIA training, cash, new passports, a gun, and intelligence on the people who killed Sarah. After the meeting, Charlie returns to his car and vomits from the stress. Back in the office, Moore tells Caleb she believes the dead man's switch is a bluff, but Caleb warns that they can't take the risk. They decide to search for the trigger and plan to eliminate Charlie during training once they confirm the bluff. Later, Caleb and his team review how Charlie could have copied the files. They suspect he used a skimmer, which wouldn't work on CIA computers, but could work on a printer. Reviewing security footage, they confirm that Charlie bought a magnetic strip from a local store, but they still can't figure out how he smuggled it past security. They search his house and discover he visited a certain bar twice. Agents search the bar and examine the jukebox. Inside, they find an ABBA CD. When they play the CD, they only hear static. They realize the CD is a decoy left by Charlie. Meanwhile, Charlie arrives at a CIA training site. Colonel Henderson greets him. They begin with shooting exercises, but Charlie struggles. He has to stand very close to the target to hit it. In contrast, he excels at bomb-making drills. Henderson is impressed by his speed and efficiency. Next, Charlie starts learning his new identity. Henderson applies stress by pushing and throwing him around, forcing Charlie to recite personal details without error. They also complete new passport documentation. That night, Henderson visits Charlie's room. He tells Charlie that he's not a killer. Charlie insists he's not seeking revenge. He wants justice. Henderson hands him a gun and tells him to aim at his chest. Charlie's hands tremble and he can't do it. He lowers the weapon. Back at the CIA, agents spend hours decrypting the contents of the CD recovered from the jukebox. Eventually, they confirm Charlie was bluffing about the dead man's switch. They alert Moore, unaware that Charlie has been listening in. It's revealed that the chip Charlie smuggled into the building wasn't just a storage device, it's a listening bug. He planted it in the documents he gave to Moore and Caleb. Moore realizes the files are transmitting data and quickly calls Henderson to order Charlie's arrest. But by then, Charlie has already escaped. Moore looks at the files again and speaks directly into the bug, telling Charlie that this act is treason. In response, Charlie removes his earpiece and boards a plane. Charlie arrives in London, clears customs, and immediately travels toward Paris. The CIA system flags his fake passport, and Moore sends Henderson to pursue him. In Paris, Charlie checks into a hotel near a restaurant often visited by Gretchen. He waits and eventually spots her. Once she's close, he begins tracking her phone. He spends the day watching her building. When a tenant exits, Charlie uses the opportunity to slip inside. He follows instructions from an online video to pick the lock to her apartment. Inside, he searches thoroughly. He photographs Gretchen's calendar and finds a gun, which he keeps. Suddenly, his tracker alerts him that she's returning. He hides in the stairwell, waiting. But when she enters, Charlie can't bring himself to act. Disappointed, he retreats to his hotel and imagines Sarah is still with him. After calming down, he reviews Gretchen's schedule and notices frequent hospital visits. He hacks into her medical records and learns that she suffers from severe allergies. The next morning, Charlie buys a large number of flowers and waits at a cafe until he sees Gretchen. He follows her to the hospital where she's undergoing tests. When the doctor steps out due to a computer glitch, Charlie enters the room disguised as a medical staff member and locks the door. He traps Gretchen inside a test machine and fills the chamber with pollen. She panics and begins to weaken. Charlie tells her he will let her out if she tells him where to find Horst, the man who shot Sarah. Unable to speak, Gretchen continues to struggle. Charlie opens the chamber, but she immediately attacks him. They fight across the room, crashing into furniture. Charlie draws the stolen gun, but Gretchen overpowers him and escapes. Charlie chases her out onto the street. Just as he's about to fire, a car strikes Gretchen. Stunned, Charlie walks up to her body and takes her phone. Then he flees and tosses his disguise in a trash bin. Back at the hotel, Charlie washes away the blood and prepares to leave. That night, he heads to a bus station and buys a ticket to Marseille. News of Gretchen's death quickly reaches the CIA. Director O'Brien confronts Moore about it. He says only that it appears she was killed by one of their own. Meanwhile, Charlie drinks heavily at a bar, overwhelmed with guilt. In his haze, he thinks he sees Sarah dancing. When he looks closer, it's only someone who resembles her. Suddenly, Charlie spots Henderson entering the bar. Panicking, he pushes through the crowd and escapes to another bar nearby. Henderson follows him. Charlie rushes into the bathroom and locks the door, but there's no window. Realizing he's trapped, Charlie comes out and sits beside Henderson at the bar. They exchange brief words. Henderson reveals that he tracked Charlie by tracing Gretchen's phone. In response, Charlie shows him a timer on his phone, then runs out. Moments later, a bomb explodes in the bathroom. Chaos breaks out in the bar. In the confusion, Henderson loses sight of Charlie. The phone tracker no longer works. The next morning, Charlie contacts Inquilin for help. He boards a cargo plane and flies to Turkey. In Istanbul, he goes to a restaurant and sends a text. A nearby man's phone rings. Charlie starts to approach, but a woman blocks his path and tells him to check his phone. She follows him outside and identifies herself as Inquilin. She already knows about Sarah. She hands Charlie a shopping bag and tells him to hide his hat and backpack. Then she tells him to pretend to shop before meeting her again at a garage. Later, they meet again, and she drives him to her home. During the drive, Inquilin explains that her late husband, also a CIA asset, was the original Inquilin. He worked for Russian intelligence. After his suspicious death, she took over. At her home, she says it's the longest she's ever stayed in one place. She's tired of running. If the Russians ever come, she has a gun ready for herself. They discuss the 3 remaining targets. Horst is the mercenary recruiter working for Moore. Lawrence is an arms dealer, and Mishka is a frequent traveler who shares everything online. They study Mishka's social media posts and find a woman appearing repeatedly in the background. Facial recognition leads them to her Instagram, which confirms she is currently in Spain. The next day, Caleb orders his team to monitor the remaining terrorists closely in hopes of locating Charlie. At the same time, O'Brien summons Moore to her office. She warns him to stop running unauthorized Black Ops missions. Moore responds calmly, saying her predecessor told him the same thing, and he gave them the same answer. She has his full support. Later, O'Brien gets into her car. Her assistant shows her surveillance photos of Henderson in Spain. This confirms that Moore has deployed him without authorization. O'Brien sends one of her own agents after Henderson. Meanwhile, Inquilin and Charlie use hacked security feeds to find Mishka in a hotel in Madrid. Charlie travels there and checks in at the same hotel. He learns that Mishka regularly swims in the rooftop pool that connects 2 buildings with a glass-bottom walkway. At the same time, Henderson arrives in Madrid, tracking Charlie. The next day, Charlie begins building a device and hides it inside the hotel near the pool. Later, he follows Mishka to a bar. He notices a suspicious man he's seen before and realizes he's being followed. He contacts Inquilin through his earpiece. She quickly identifies the man as a CIA agent and also spots Henderson on nearby cameras. She tells Charlie to abort the mission, but he decides to continue. When Mishka goes to the pool, Charlie follows and confronts him. He demands to know Horst's location. Mishka refuses, so Charlie warns him that the pool will collapse if he doesn't talk. Mishka laughs it off and starts swimming. Charlie activates the device. Cracks form in the glass. Panicked, Mishka swims faster, but it's too late. The glass breaks, and Mishka falls with the water to his death. Streets below flood from the impact. Inquilin warns Charlie that Henderson and the other agent are closing in. She guides him through the building. A chase begins, and Henderson nearly catches Charlie, but the second agent suddenly appears and attacks Henderson. They fight violently in a laundry room, smashing into machines and furniture. The agent pulls a gun and shoots Henderson, but Henderson disarms him and returns fire, killing him. Charlie briefly hesitates, unsure if he should help. Inquilin tells him to keep running. He follows her instructions and escapes. The following day, O'Brien calls Moore to her office and questions him again about Charlie. Moore claims that Charlie is still on bereavement leave. O'Brien lets him go, but later reveals that she now has footage from the Madrid hotel showing Charlie's presence. Meanwhile, Caleb's team also reviews the footage and realizes Charlie had outside help. They search his encrypted communications and uncover messages from Inquilin. After further digging, they retrieve the file of the original Inquilin, an agent who died under suspicious circumstances. They conclude that his wife must have taken over his role. That night, Charlie and Inquilin agree to sleep next to each other for comfort, but their rest is interrupted by the screeching of Inquilin's birds. Checking the security cameras, they see a team of agents approaching the house. They quickly escape through a hidden tunnel in the wall. Outside, Charlie spots a surveillance drone overhead. Using nearby buildings for cover, they manage to evade detection and flee the neighborhood just before agents breach the house. The CIA finds nothing. The computer systems are already set to wipe all data automatically. Charlie and Inquilin run along the beach and reach her car. The drone catches sight of them, and armed agents begin pursuit. Some follow in vehicles, others by boat. During the chase, gunfire damages their car. Inquilin is seriously wounded. Charlie moves her body into the passenger seat and takes the wheel. He continues driving until he finally loses their pursuers. Later, he pulls into a garage, parks the car, and says goodbye to her. The next day, Charlie contacts Lawrence. Using his cover as an arms dealer, he arranges a meeting. Then he buys new electronic equipment and travels to Romania. In an abandoned building, Charlie records video footage of himself. He uses it to spoof a live security feed in Berlin, tricking the CIA into thinking that's where he is. The agency sends agents there. When Lawrence arrives at the meeting site in Romania, he finds a phone ringing on a chair. Charlie, speaking through the phone, instructs him to open a nearby box. Inside are several small bombs. Charlie warns him that if he moves, the bombs will detonate. Lawrence finds a photo of Sarah in the box. Then Charlie appears in person. He demands to know Horst's location and promises to disable the bombs if Lawrence cooperates. Lawrence explains that Horst operates in Russian waters and receives deliveries at a Baltic seaport. He only communicates through encrypted codes delivered by his own men. He tosses his phone on the floor. Charlie grabs the phone and exits. Moments later, an explosion is heard. Lawrence is killed. News of Lawrence's death in Romania reaches the CIA. They quickly realize realize they've been misled by the fake Berlin feed. Meanwhile, Charlie arrives at a hotel in Russia. There, he imagines Sarah with him as he opens the gift she had left in her suitcase. Inside is a puzzle. He solves it quickly, revealing a hidden message from Sarah, something sweet and personal. The next morning, Charlie heads to the port. He watches the area closely and notices a suspicious vehicle. He sends an encrypted message using the codes retrieved from Lawrence's phone. A man near the vehicle checks his phone in response. Charlie follows the man and secretly takes photos of his boat. Later, he purchases tools and equipment. Back at the hotel, he traces the boat's registration and identifies the yacht it's connected to. He studies the sea routes and prepares to make contact. The next day, Charlie approaches the boat. Before he can act, someone knocks him out from behind. His body falls to the dock, and Sarah's puzzle drops beside him. Charlie wakes up aboard the yacht and comes face to face with Horst. Horst has already found the bomb Charlie planted earlier. He's also aware that Charlie has killed the others indirectly. He challenges Charlie, saying he isn't capable of pulling the trigger face to face. Horst hands Charlie a gun and orders him to kill. Charlie raises the weapon but can't bring himself to fire. He lowers the gun instead. Suddenly, the yacht shifts direction, turning away from its original course. Crew members panic. Charlie reveals that he has taken control of the yacht remotely. Since he helped design the CIA's system protocols, he was able to hack into them. The yacht is now heading straight for Finnish waters. Soon, Finnish naval ships and Interpol units surround the vessel. Horst and his men are arrested without resistance. Sometime later, Director O'Brien holds a press conference. She announces the arrest of several rogue CIA operatives involved in unauthorized missions and illegal activities. The agency is launching a full investigation into how its resources were misused. After the conference, Henderson finds Charlie and approaches him quietly. He tells Charlie that he's proud of what he did. There's no confrontation, just a quiet acknowledgement between them. Later, Charlie visits Sarah's grave. He stands alone, taking in the moment, before leaving in silence. Back at home, Charlie goes to his garage and finishes the plane Sarah had given him as a birthday gift. This time, he takes it out for a flight. He climbs aboard, starts the engine, and lifts off into the sky.